Welcome to Empire Building. I'm Wendy Papazan, and together with my 4 co-hosts, we bring you weekly unfiltered conversations about leadership, growing a big empire, and living on your own terms.
I'm Kimber Levitt-Keedy. We are investors and wealth builders with over $75 million in combined net worth.
I'm Sarah Reynolds. We are visionaries who built more than 50 businesses with over $122 million in annual revenue.
I'm Tiffany Fikes. We've led thousands of people and do it all while being pretty good moms.
And I'm Seychelle Van Poole. We are your podcast to learn how to build big businesses and even bigger lives. Welcome back to Empire Building, and I am joined with one of my besties here today, Kimber, and you've got Seychelle here too. We're so excited about this topic that we're going to be covering today because something I observed recently, and Kimber, I would love your take on this. Something I observed with all of us as hosts recently is that every single one of us have some key business relationships that we have had for a really good amount of time. And most of us have been in business 10 to 20 years or more at this point.
So when you say that out loud, I'm like, it's wild.
I know. I'm like, going on year 22. What is happening?
What is happening?
That's definitely not possible. It's like someone was mentioning 20 years ago, and I was like, oh, yeah, it was like the 1980s. I was like, oh, no, that was 2006.
I know.
But
crazy.
We all have relationships in business that have gone the distance with us, that have grown with us, that have built multiple business with us. And, you know, I realize some people come for a reason, some people come for a season, and, you know, some people come for a really long time and go the distance with us. But I thought it would be really cool for us to dissect some of the nuances that we've observed by working together and having the privilege of growing with people over time to maybe help other people in that journey as well.
Absolutely. And the lessons, right? Because I think, you know, all of us have people that maybe aren't with us who are good people. And a lot of times, like, right, when you actually reflect on it, it's where you were as a leader in that season that they were with you. And so what are some of those, like, when you start to distill it down, what are those lessons, right? What are the things that are the elements of, like, those ingredients that really allow good people to stay, grow, and thrive in an organization?
Yeah, I love that. And, you know, I think something that I've observed with all of us too is we view part of the big, massive value in each of our businesses are the humans in there. And I think I always feel so bad when I hear friends that talk about their businesses as if they're expendable. And something that all of us as hosts value tremendously is the people that have chosen to associate with us, to trust us, to go the distance with us. And sometimes it is for a season, sometimes it's for a long season. But that to me is just one of the biggest gifts that all 5 of us as hosts have had in getting to go the distance with our people.
Yeah. Well, and it's really not by accident, right? Like, when you think about going the distance, there's some steps, like there's some steps that really help us build these long-term, really often magical, right? Because it's like, it's the same sort of personally too, right? Like these relationships that grow and develop over time. And what are some of the things that really help unlock that and build these beautiful relationships, especially in business, which is so cool as you're building, you know, our empire builders, they're building even things beyond that initial business. And what's so cool is that that's often creating those opportunities that you're creating and unrolling, right? That other people get to then build alongside you, which is really powerful.
I absolutely love that. Well, I'm excited for us to dive in today. And if you're listening and you're thinking, wow, I'm wanting to level up my team and help take them to the next level, this episode is for you. If you're like, gosh, I seem to be continually turning over people and I can't figure out why, and I'm starting over all the time, this episode is also for you because there are going to be clues in here that you can take and directly implement, which we love when Kimber and I do episodes together. We want you to take it and put it in your business right away. So we promise today it's going to be chock full of those. So let's dive on in.
Let's dive in.
Number 1, the first clue. This is the same in marriage. Okay. So if you're also working on your marriage, this is also it. The first clue is it all starts with you.
Shocker, right?
Hands down, you have got to get to know yourself in this process. And as a leader, if you are bringing people into your world and into your organization, if you don't know yourself, your strengths, and sometimes where your limitations are or your weaknesses are. We all have them. It is not possible to not have them. We all do. But if you aren't aware of what yours are, you really need to do some self-reflection and really look at where your holes and your gaps are, because that is going to help you speed up 10x in your human journey. And, there's some assessments that you can do if you need help with this reflection that can go back and help you with it. I know the first one for me when I really started to understand humans was the DISC personality assessment. And I remember there was a guy, Tad Kirkpatrick, sat down with me. I think I was 22. And up until that point, I had heard about like Myers-Briggs, or I'd heard about A-type and B-type personalities. But I had never really heard about the DISC, meaning about the drive, the influencing, the stability, and the calculatory side of ourselves, and which roles need which ones. And that for me was the first one that really kind of cracked the code on what I had, and also what I had severe deficiencies in that I knew I was going to need some help in business. I would love, Kimber, I don't know if you have any assessments that were early on for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the DISC being one of the early ones, this was it, right? But I think this idea, a lot of times we jump into this process and we're immediately ready to give these assessments to all these people that are going to be coming into our worlds. And I think what we're talking about here is, I think a critical step is your own. Like, when's the last time you reviewed your own DISC assessment, the KPA, Strengths Finders, Enneagram, like these things? And you might be like, well, I've already taken one. I find that they each kind of take a different view and lens and kind of come at it from a different angle. But have you really spent some time, right, to reflect on that with a coach, with a partner, like to really read it, digest it, and understand like where the blind spots might be, where are your strengths, right? And where are the places, especially in your team, where might not be, right? These are things I'm personality. It's not a right or wrong. It's not good or bad. Like, these are just personality things that I want to make sure that I'm aware of about myself. Like, the self-awareness is that powerful first step. So I'm with you. Like, it was super helpful. And until I started to use that as an insight for adding and deepening the relationships on the team, like that became a critical element to unlock that perspective and really feedback, even if maybe what were some of the mismatches for why people weren't continuing to grow in the organization.
Well, and like one early on good example that I had was like, so for example, on the DISC, like I'm very high drive, very high interpersonal. So high D, high I, like 95 to 98% on both of those. And my steady, stable, like consistency and calculatory or detail side of myself, I can't find them. They're on the floor somewhere.
You're like, I don't know where they are.
I'm like the bottom 5%. Like, it's such a large disparity between the two that I was like, oh, I've got to go hire someone with high stability, consistency, predictability, and high calculatory detail. So we went out, we hired this person who is a highly talented person, by the way. We're in touch with her still today. But the part that I did not factor in for by not knowing myself first is that, yes, she was highly detailed. Yes, she's high, steady, stable, but also incredibly slow in her speed. Her speed was so much slower than my speed was in the processing that it was like on a daily basis, I just wanted to punch walls. Like, because my speed
like, we can't
is
do this. Yeah.
the extreme opposite. Like, y'all constantly are her Best Life founders are like, Seychelles is one of the faster speed processors. So I was like, but she's steady, stable, but she's high detail. This is what I should want. And it was such a mismatch because our speeds were so opposite of each other that all it was doing was creating tension and frustration. And so by knowing yourself, how, Strengths Finders gives you some great clues too, but really diving in to get to know yourself, you can save some heartache and frustration in that hiring process to kind of help get the right match for the right person.
That's right. Well, and somebody said to me, a coach, many years ago, was like, it's actually up to the leader to adjust, right? To the extent that you decide that that's what's necessary in your organization, not the people to adjust to the leader. So it's, I think, important that you understand, because if you're like, hey, well, I just run hard and fast and everybody just needs to keep up with me, which, like, there are people who that's the philosophy. But if you're cycling people through your world, then you might have to ask that question. Am I just demanding that everybody, directly or not, right, has to adjust to the pace and the speed or the personality that I have? That's going to limit, right, sometimes how, who comes and stays and grows in your world. And that's a big piece, right? Like, I realized quickly in our leadership team earlier last year, that we have a lot of like high D, high I, right? And not enough of that, the C, right? This
The detail.
that organizational, the detail.
The packing
And
the
so
parachute.
you had all these
Yeah.
people who were like, yeah, like, let's run through let's do all this. And leading, like, our leadership team was missing this really critical element as a seat at the table, which meant like lots of messes were being made and needed to be made. But then somebody actually had to come back together and put all that stuff together. Like the system part, the process part, the replicatable, the consistency.
Like, how is it actually going to work? Like, actually, how are we going to do that?
Yeah. And is it going to work over time? Like everyone's got this big, great idea. So if you've got a lot of like that became this process of knowing the self and knowing the leadership team and that personality became a big piece of also what's the gap, right? Like where are we really not succeeding at the level that we want to because we're missing behaviorally something.
Well, and with like an amazing high detail person, I think one thing that you hit the nail on the head is with a high detail person, oftentimes a love language of theirs is being right and not making mistakes. And when that turns into a system to not make the mistake again, it's a superpower. When that person is not thinking about creating a system and just wants to be right every time, it can be destructive in the organization. And so by knowing, like for you, knowing in your leadership team, you had a bunch of people making a ton of messes, but no one creating the systems behind it, by looking for someone who's high detail, but also has a track record of creating flywheels or creating replicatable systems, that detail is going to be so important to do that. But the being right aspect of it is only a component if the system continues to work. So paying attention to those little nuances of understanding personalities make a big difference too.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you're understanding your own personality, right, then that's going to help inform the rest of your process, right? As you're adding to your team, as you're getting to know their personality in the process. It's also like, if you're like, hey, I've already got my team, there's a bunch of people around me, it's a good time to go back, right, and revisit, get to know personality, making sure that like you are hiring and engaging people that are naturally fits for the role. What's the role that they're in? You just give that, like, right, say this, like, how does it show up for the organized person? How do we make sure that the role really matches that behavior? And then really taking time to slow down your hiring process, getting to know the candidates as you're going through, right? Getting to know motivation, getting to know their wants, desires, highs, lows, like how you win with them, like how they win with you, like really taking that time in the process so that you're really earning trust. Like that's the time, right? You're earning that trust early on, and that increases that motivation, right? That somebody wants to be in relationship for the long term.
We've done a hiring series on this podcast. I'm sure probably this year we'll do another one again. It's so important. But Kimber hit something so important, which is to follow a process and not to cheat the system. It doesn't, like, we're not married to which process you use, but use a system that's going to help save you from yourself. Because especially if you're somebody who loves people, you're going to fall in love with someone fast. And when you do that, you're probably not going to ask all the questions you need to not screw that up, because you're going to be like, oh, but they're so nice, but we go to the same country club, and oh my gosh, they love wine. I love wine. Oh my gosh, we have 3 kids. It's meant to be. It's meant to be. And then
that's right.
You're 6 months in and wanting to murder each other, and you can't figure out why.
And you're like, wait, but they were such a good fit over there. I don't understand why it's not working here. It's not
exactly.
working. Yes.
That's exactly right. Yeah, for sure. And so slowing that process down and really asking the questions, having like reference checks, having people help that you have to defend the hire to make a huge difference, because then you're having to justify the hire up front instead of go back and have to fix a bunch of messes in the back end, because those are all wonderful and expensive. So
that's right. Well, and I think it's like, if you're using a process, you're spending time getting them in the role. And then I find, especially, for those our empire builders in the real estate space, a lot of times they get in the role and you're like, yes, they're sitting there. Let me just like throw a book and papers and a YouTube video at them, and I'm off to the next thing. Like, right, I got to move on to the next thing to help move the business forward, especially as entrepreneurs. And having a really good 30, 60, 90, right? Like, what does success look like for them and for you in that role in the first 30, 60, 90 days? If you know this was a slam dunk hire and they were winning in the role, what is happening in those first 30, 60, 90 days? And you want to define that before the hiring, like before the process starts, so that when they're starting, you really have a really good definition, because good people want to win.
Yes.
They want to win in their role, right? They want to win. They want to be successful. And our job as a leader is to define what winning looks like and be really, really clear. When you're winning in this role, this is what this looks like. And I find that resetting, if you've got a team today, if you're not hiring, but you've already got people in the seat, are you clear? Like you hear KPIs, this key performance indicators. Go back and are you clear? And less is more, right? Simplify. What are the top 3 things that every person in your role that are smart, right? You can quantify, trackable, you know what they are for them to win. Like, right? What does it look like? Think about the quarter you're in and define that for your team. I think it's really powerful because when people are clear and they know how to win, like that allows them to succeed at an even higher level.
I think about like one of the best analogies with that is like our kids with sports. We don't enroll them in an athletic adventure, right? Like I think about Braxton with hockey. I think about Quinn with cheer. We don't enroll them and then not measure them until the like championship tournament.
That's right.
Right? Like that's not when we give the feedback, right? At the very end of the season. These coaches are drilling you. They're modeling behavior for you. They're telling you if you did right or wrong. They're giving you extra conditioning every single practice if you're on or off track and telling you why it's important, right? Like I know Quinn's first couple practices were rough because she was like, these guys are like drill sergeants over here. They're like beating us to a pulp. And the coaches said, listen, you don't want to show up and win last place at every competition because you didn't do what you needed to do every practice. And when we're talking about the first 30, 60, and 90 days, you need to think about yourself like an athletics coach that's running every practice to help model for them, to help give feedback, to give actionable things that work and don't. Because winners want to know how to improve. Winners want to win at the end of the day, and they want to know if they're doing a good job or not. And so by investing in those first 90 days really heavily, that allows you to then start pulling into weekly accountable meetings and then into, whatever you need to do for your system. But it gives a really good amount of trust and baseline up front.
Absolutely.
So this next one is one that I have definitely failed at. I would love your feedback on it. But the next way that you can lose real fast with people is money.
That's it.
I have won more people and lost more people over money than anything else. I will give you some examples of how I've lost. I have overpromised and underdelivered on what the team could do and created their bonus structure based on what the team was going to do and things that they couldn't control to get them there.
Yep.
That was a really good one.
I have definitely joined you in that one.
I was desperate to hire, so I offered to pay them more than the business could really afford because I didn't really know my numbers. And then I had to go back and renegotiate their money. That was a fast way to lose people. Anytime you go back and take people's money away, you're at risk of losing someone, no question. And so if we could maybe just share some fail forward on that, but it's a great idea to paint the vision for the future and what that person specifically can control to earn more money and then bonus them based off of what they can control if they are moving into a key player role. It is not fair to the person to give them a base comp and then offer them bonus off of a ton of things that they have no control over and no ability to impact.
Yes.
So if you're creating compensation, pay really close attention to that.
That's definitely a trap that I have fallen into, where it's so complicated that what you created is so complicated that they're spending all of the extra energy that you'd be paying for the bonus on tracking the bonus.
Yes.
So there's no way to track it. It's not trackable. It's not clear, or it takes an extra 5 hours to track it every week. And so that's a waste of energy. So is it simple? Can they influence it? For sure. And, one big lesson was when you have a lot of times, right, behavior follows compensation.
Yes.
So I know I've gotten into a world where I think, oh my God, this is an amazing comp package. It might have a low base and a high bonus, but I know that bonus potential. And I'm ready to bet on them being successful in the role. And they're betting on stability. So they would actually take less because they want the stability and give up they would give up the upside for the stability. And I was that blew my mind, right? And so I definitely made mistakes in that process, not understanding how much behavior, particularly on our operational people, they're more wired to I want it to be stable. I don't like the ups, downs, all the things. A nice extra bonus is nice, but if so much of the comp, it creates extra stress for them, extra anxiety, and they're ready to jump. sometimes, and this is a tough one, and I've debated often, I'd love your feedback on it, is transparency around the money? Because again, back to behavior, we've had moments when we're really all like, oh my goodness, the team lost money this month. The team, like that's the reality, right, of a business. And for some behaviors, that feels really unstable. Oh my God, I got to go find a job because what happened? And not having all the context and then giving people access to sometimes that information can be destabilizing. So definitely a mistake I made in like transparency around the information without the context and understanding how certain behaviors, how it creates anxiety when they're not in control of those outcomes too.
I definitely have done that before. And sometimes I had one time when we were in the middle of like a really rough season in the business, and I shared it of like, this is how much I care about you. We haven't made money in 2 years and I'm still grinding. And what the team saw was like, this is terrible.
This is terrible.
We're going to all lose our jobs. So maybe don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that.
It was a big eye-opening moment where I was like, well, maybe I shouldn't have said that. But I do think that getting transparency in the numbers is an earned right for a business. And I think part of the stability that someone perceives when you're looking at a business that may be in a cash like negative situation for a minute, that the stability they are going to feel, I think, relies on the health of your cash reserves. And so if I am giving an operations team insight into our business and the highs and lows, the key things that I'm going to share is number one, how much we leave in the cash reserves bucket. I keep two. I keep like the world is ending and we're now like moving to bucket 2, which means it's really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a bucket 1, which is like our day-to-day cash reserves.
That's right.
That's
Float
like
the business.
the float the
Mm-hmm.
business, and it keeps a certain amount in there. The second thing I share with them is the monthly nut that the business has to clear in order to go into profit, because I want them watching that number like a hawk. So for example, if a business has to clear $50,000 to the business to pay for operational expenses and move into profitability, if they know whatever that number is, they're watching that number every month and protecting it fiercely. So I like for our key operations people to know whatever that monthly nut is that they have to cover. And then I think the third one is what impacts their bonus. To your point, like if we know that getting more online reviews impacts our bonus, well, maybe their bonus, or impacts our business and getting more business, well, maybe then that's a number they need to be tracking and helping to move the needle on. So take a look at whatever it is that is making your business grow, and the bonus structure should be based off of what they can influence with that.
Absolutely. And I think the big theme is communicate around it. Like so many times we don't want to talk about money and we don't have the conversation. And so there's lots of assumptions being made. So being able to understand what are financial goals for people coming into the organization, how do you hit them? How did they influence being able to achieve them, and having that conversation. So that under promise, over deliver, like and lean into that as a conversation you're building into your conversation when they're coming into the organization, into one-on-ones that you're having, into reviews, and not shy away from it. Like be open to that dialogue and their goals and what's important to them and why that's important to them, so that the business is allowing them to reach their financial goals as well.
I love that. Well, and oftentimes when people are asking about money, it's because they care. I found very rarely does somebody ask about the financial health of the business because they're like in a negative headspace or feeling like they're going to be a threat to the business. They're asking because they want to lean in and want to help. One other thing I was going to say about changing money or changing compensation that we have learned is be very slow to move compensation up. Really, really, really run your numbers 12 different ways, because once you raise it, you cannot take it back. You are set in it. So something we've started doing is really being slow to do that, but then really running the numbers and doing something as a pilot program for 30 or 90 days and say, we're going to pilot this for 90 days and see how it goes. And if it works and the business is still profitable and it's making more money for everybody, great, we're going to keep it. If it doesn't, we might take a look at a different way to do that. So a pilot program is something you can change or use as short-term incentives, but it doesn't lock you into forever. So that's something we do too.
Awesome. All right. So the third bucket, so we talked about, right, how to make sure know yourself, invest in a hiring process, lean into the financial conversations, right? And the next is retention, right? How do you you've done all that. How do you make sure they actually
Want to stay? Yeah.
Our one is that's exactly right. Right. And ultimately, retention is built in the relationship. That's where it's built. So once you're in relationship, once you're like locked arms and you're building together, take time to establish, invest, and deepen the relationship. Like every single team building, like, do you have that built into the cadence, the system of your organization, right? Do you do a quarterly team building event? Do you have a weekly one-on-one? Do they have a 30, 90-day goal set that's clear? They know how they're going to win, right? It's really important, right, that we're able to take time every few months to look away, understand not just the business, but also the personal. And ultimately, do they know that you care, right? That you're real, you're a human person. You're also, for me, this is a big thing. I think as the leader, you're always like, you're carrying everybody else's things. And do they know that like you're also a real person and you're also like, you can have fun, you can like, you have challenges, like all those things. And I think your point even to say when you said like, they were like, oh my God, you haven't made money in 2 years. What I'm realizing too is like, because they care about you and they're like, oh my God, are you okay? Right. So I realized the more I was armored up as a leader, I was like lessening my ability to also build the relationship with them because it was a one-sided piece. And the more that I could allow them into that world, it allowed the relationships to just deepen at a different level.
And I think too, the people lean into the amount they feel that you care. And so if you naturally are not someone that enjoys the act of delighting and surprising or celebrating birthdays or being aware of some of those things, put some systems into place. Like one thing that we did was create a list of favorite things. And we just had every team member fill out a survey that asked them what their favorite things were. And it had favorite candy, restaurants, shops, whatever, right? And it had a list. And then anytime I wanted to go surprise somebody for a birthday or something, I was giving them something they wanted instead of something that I thought they would want. It took a lot of the pressure off. But they did the survey when they were hired. They totally forgot about it. So they think you're magic. And
yes.
and are showing up in a way that pays attention. So you can build in systems. You could put on your calendar once a week, do something nice for a team member. Like you can build a system around it. You don't have to be this like all present all the time, all, knowing leader. If that's not your natural skill set, you can build systems around that to help you show up in a way that you might want to, or that your team may need you to.
Absolutely. And you said two things, right? Like the calendaring it, build the system and have, because the system, right, is going to then involve scheduling it. Because a lot of times it's not that we don't intend to, right? It's that everything is taking over and you look up and it's the morning of a birthday and you're trying to stop by the store and they're like, and it feels really rushed and unplanned and unthoughtful. But when it's on the schedule, it changes everything. And so as a leader, thinking about what's the system, what are the times that I really want to build and deepen that connection and recognize my team, and then building that in. Not that you can't get the delight and surprise and all the other things in between, but that it's ensuring that at a baseline, right, the recognition is a system in your business that allows those relationships to deepen at a different level.
I love that. That's awesome. And I think the last thing I would say is without like a pathway or a vision, which is the leader is our job to cast, you're going to find that you'll attract more cul-de-sac talent instead of people that want to grow the business or really want it to flourish and thrive. And so just make sure that you are also helping to future pace of like, when we nailed this for this amount of time, the next opportunity that opens up is X. And then when we nail that one for this amount of time and get this result, then it moves to X. Like it doesn't mean you need to be 40 years out with them, but 12 to 18 months out, helping to cast that vision of what that next opportunity looks like, even if you don't 100% hit the mark, but you're close, really helps with that too on motivating and keeping that talent.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think there's such a, like you tie that in, that motivation. What is the motivation for them? And that was really our thought as we go through this piece. You're building trust. You're getting to know them right from the beginning, even in the hiring process, and then weaving that through. And ultimately, that's allowing you to have really long-standing, incredible relationships that, your team becomes your family. And that's really powerful.
It is really powerful. Well, we hope today has helped you in your journey for making sure you keep those great people and don't make some of the mistakes that Kimber and I have made along the way. Hopefully we'll save you thousands and thousands of dollars with this episode. Yes. And go out there, build that big business, an even bigger life. And if this has helped you at all, please share it with a friend and leave us a 5-star review. Thanks, you guys.
Have a great week.
Bye.
This podcast is for general informational purposes only. The views, thoughts, and opinions of the guest represent those of the guest and not Keller Williams Realty LLC and its affiliates, and should not be construed as financial, economic, legal, tax, or other advice. This podcast is provided without any warranty or guarantee of its accuracy, completeness, timeliness, or results from using the information.